Welcome to Families Action on your family. Just caught me off guard. Welcome to Families in Action on your hometown station, AM 1220 KHTS. I'm Cary Quashen. I'm your host. I do not host it by myself. Michael Doherty, that we call the Silver Fox here.
How you doing, Cary?
How did you get that name, Mike?
How did I get that name? Well, actually, one of the nurses at the hospital decided that would be a good nickname for
In the behavioral health unit.
Yes,
Actually,
the behavioral
it
health
was the
unit.
patients.
It was a patient.
There we
Okay.
go. So let's be real here.
I hear you. Hey, we have an exciting show today.
We always do, Mike.
I know, but today we have two different guests. We have Gary Mendel, the chairman and CEO of Shatterproof.org, who has a phenomenal story. And you know, last year, our producer, Stephanie Weiss, who's down in Texas, rappelled 20 stories off a hotel.
Stephanie's always been crazy.
Down in Austin, and it was for the Shatterproof.org. So now we have the chairman and the CEO who's going to explain the whole thing to us. He's going to be on the phone. And also, we have Josh Greengard, the public information officer for the local California Highway Patrol, one of our local heroes.
Our highway's finest.
Very.
One of
our highway's finest keeps us safe out there.
Well, thank you guys for having me here again today.
No, we appreciate everything you do.
Thank you.
So it's great to be here. And Mike, Families in Action, just so I could throw it in, is brought to you by your hometown station, AM 1220 KHTS, which we so much appreciate. We've been on the air now 13 years.
Wow, and big thank you to Carl and Jerry
and everyone
Goldmans,
here.
who this radio station does so much for Santa Clarita.
It really does. Not just Santa Clarita. I mean, it's way out there. They do a lot of stuff.
They
for
do.
us. So
we
we so much appreciate that. And also by Action Family Counseling, which is alcohol and drug rehabilitation centers. We have everything from outpatient to residential treatment centers and everything in between. And then the Action Foundation, which I'll let you talk about.
Cary, every Tuesday night you've got a place to go, 7 to 9 at the Canyon High School, when you do that free parent support group. And you've been doing it for a long time.
Well, how about almost 30 years?
That's a while.
These groups, yeah, it was. And now it's called Action. Before that, it was Tough Love, and it's just been we've been out here almost 30 years. So a long time, Mike.
So any parent that's out there saying, I just don't know what to do, I don't know how to deal with this is the place for them.
This is definitely the place. We have trained counselors that are there to deal with your children for any kind of teenage issues, from self-esteem to substance abuse and everything in between. And then we have a parent support group for parents that have been through whatever you're going through. These parents have been through. And I participate in the parent group too, so we're there for you. And it costs you nothing, just the gas to get there. So don't be afraid, come on by.
Well, Cary, speaking about our show today, one of the things that you talk about a lot is not only the fact that addiction and what happens to the person that's an addict, but the fact that it destroys families.
If somebody's addicted to drugs, we know that everybody close to that person is affected. I love that commercial where it says depression, who does it hurt, where does it hurt, and it's everybody. Substance abuse, the same thing. Everyone's affected. And you know what, Michael? Two things. I don't know anyone that it doesn't know somebody that's got a problem with alcohol or drugs. I don't know anybody who doesn't know somebody that it's affected, if you think about it. And what's really scary is that in this country, we're going to be on the air for an hour, right?
Yes.
Well,
exactly.
two for me. I have a special thing coming after, which we'll talk about.
That's right. You have a special.
Yeah, but for 1 hour, minimum of five people are going to die from an accidental drug overdose in this country. That's horrible. That's horrifying, isn't it?
It's a lot.
Yeah, and these numbers are from 2014.
So we know it's more.
So with the opiate addiction right now, it's worse. So you can bank it's closer, probably, I'm not even going to say it, but I have a feeling it's probably closer to double.
Yeah.
In 1 hour, that's how many people are going to die from just an accidental overdose. That's not including car crashes that you see.
Oh, yeah. Car crashes, leading cause of teenager deaths are car crashes.
Yeah. And that's not including rapes and homicides and disease and robberies. Natural disasters, beatings, abuse. I mean, we can go on and on forever right now. So it's really a pretty frightening thing what's going on. So Michael, that's going to lead us into, we have Shatterproof, which does some really great stuff. So I'm going to let you introduce our guest. He's a call-in guest. And when we're done with him, we're going to go right to California's highway's finest, or one of them, as he says.
Hoorah. Gary, are you on with us still?
Yes, I am.
Hi. Well, let me introduce you once again. Now that the show is on, we have Mr. Gary Mendel, Chairman and CEO of Shatterproof.org. And let me just give a bit of the story, but we really want you, Gary, to tell us more. Certainly, your son Brian lost his battle with addiction, and you said enough. And Shatterproof.org, formerly Brian's Wish, was created to honor Brian's memory with a promise to spare other families the anguish of this disease. And the organization's vision is to unite and empower to end the stigma. That's Shatterproof.org. Welcome, Gary.
Thank you, Michael, for having me. Appreciate it.
And Gary and Cary, I have to remind our audience that last year, our producer Stephanie Weiss, who's down in Texas, had called in and said, "Hey, guess what? I'm going to rappel off a 20-story building down here in Austin." She is, in fact, going to do that again this year. But the reason that she's doing
I actually saw the picture. She really did it, Michael.
She did it, and she's going to do it again. And you know, you also had somebody else that did that as well, Cary. I don't have the name.
Angel Duke.
That's right. Angel Duke did that in Pasadena.
She did it.
Well, Gary, would you tell us a little bit more? What's the background on this? What's going on?
On Shatterproof or the repelling?
Well, no, on Shatterproof, the whole beginning of this.
Sure. Well, my career has been in business, and my older son Brian struggled with addiction for almost 10 years, and tragically, as you mentioned, he passed away related to addiction in October 2011. And, the months that followed, really struggling to get myself out of bed, really, I just got so many calls from people that knew Brian, how he had helped them. And it just hit me that I should take this loss and try to help others. And the original vision was a small local charity. But when I got into it and started to really understand some things that I didn't know, how big this was. You and Cary were just talking about it. There'll be 400 people that will die today in the United States.
It's a freaking epidemic.
Right. Can you imagine if 400 dolphins washed ashore along the beach?
Gary, can you imagine if 400 people got killed by gun violence?
Right. Or a plane dropped out of the sky with 400 people. So the first thing that hit me was how big this was. That, instead of thinking, what did I do wrong as a father, like I was the only one, there's 25 million Americans actively addicted today, which is 1 in 10.
Right.
It's 1 in 10 above the age of 12. So that hit me how big it was. What also hit me was that there was a body of knowledge sitting out there that had been created through $20 billion worth of research. That is research that has proven to significantly reduce the number of our children who ever become addicted, and research that has proven to improve outcomes in treatment. Yet all this information is sitting in medical journals, and very little of it is being used today. And then what really hit me is, how can we have something so big, and we have this body of knowledge that could save countless lives that's not being used? And what popped out was, for every major disease of in this country, there is one well-funded national organization that is funding private research, advocating for change, ending shame and stigma, and providing information to families. Think of American Cancer, American Heart, Susan Komen, Autism Speaks, and there was nothing for addiction. So seeing that, I decided to leave my career in business and dedicate my life to building this organization, such an organization for addiction. So that is Shatterproof, what started Shatterproof. We're now 3 years old, and what we've been doing is several things. Number one, we've been in states advocating to change laws to save lives, and actually we've got laws now passed in 10 states in the last 2.5 years.
Awesome.
And next year we're after Texas and Georgia, in Missouri. So we're going to be in Texas. That's one thing we've been doing. We've been working on the federal level to get federal policies changed. And speaking of what's coming to Austin in a few days, we've been creating events all over the country. Initially, where people rappel off of buildings. I say that initially because next year we're also launching a series of 5Ks. And we're going to keep the rappelling going because it's been very successful. But whether you're rappelling or you're running or walking in a 5K, what's important is that people are coming together. People are coming together for an activity to raise awareness, to end shame and stigma, to support each other, to raise funding for us so we can carry on and do the work that we're doing, getting laws changed. That's what this is about. Rappelling is only activity. It's not the repelling. It's why we're repelling. And, think of a 20-year-old who's addicted, losing hope. And he turns on the Channel 11 news, or the news at 11, and sees about another breast cancer walk, or another bike ride for autism, or a walk for autism, or diabetes. And the message he gets is, those are diseases. I'm a bad kid. I get thrown in jail. There's no activities for me. But now, he turns on the news at 11, and he sees, wow, all these people are rappelling in downtown Austin to help fund research and advocacy for addiction. My life has meaning. I have a disease just like diabetes.
Gary, this is Mike. You just mentioned about people with an addiction not being bad people, and if you don't mind, I want to read a quote from your son, Brian. Dad, 300 years ago, they burned women on stakes in Salem, Massachusetts because they thought they were witches. Later, they learned they weren't and stopped. Someday, people will realize that I am not a bad person, that I have a disease, and I am trying my hardest.
That's it.
And that really is it. I come from the background where I don't believe that there's any bad kids. There's kids that make bad choices. And if we can help people make better choices, everybody wins. And it starts when they're young, But once you get caught up in this addiction, it's a tough battle. That's for sure. I mean, just so you know a little about me, Gary, I've been clean and sober for going on 36 years this Christmas Eve.
Wonderful.
So I know the struggle.
Yeah.
And I've been dealing with people for 35 years running rehabs and psych hospitals and you name it, doing interventions. And the amount of people, Michael, as you know, that we're burying these last few years, I've been screaming, right? For the past 5 years, we're having an opiate epidemic. The heroin's out of control. It's going to be worse than the 70s. And there you go. Now we're having an opiate epidemic, and it's worse than it's ever been before. So we have to do more to educate people. That's the only way we're going to really win this battle. Because we got to take the need away. That's what we got to do. Because the drugs will always be here. They've been here. You watch an old cowboy movie, and what are they doing? They're smoking opium.
Smoking the peace pipe. Yeah.
So drugs have always been here. They're never going to go anywhere, especially now with the new deals where marijuana is legal and all that stuff. We're finding more and more kids starting even younger. So the trick now is we got to take the need away. We got to do more things like you guys are doing in Shatterproof, and more things like we're doing over here in Action. And everyone needs to get involved. So
absolutely.
So what's your thinking? My friend? So where do you want to go with all this? What do you want to see happen at Shatterproof?
Sure. Well, let's focus. If we focus on a subset of addiction and just talk about the epidemic shattering families across this country related to opiates, it's really not that complicated. Talk about two groups: the 3 million people that are already addicted, and the 300 million plus who have yet to become addicted.
Right.
And future generations. So for the 300 million who've yet to become addicted, and our grandchildren and great-grandchildren, etc., it's really not that complicated. There's been a 4 times increase in the amount of pills being prescribed on an annual basis in the last 15 years. It's gone from roughly 60 million prescriptions a year to 240 million prescriptions a year.
Right.
America is the pharmaceutical center of the universe.
It really
Correct.
is.
Well, and what is really important is what's tied to that. A 4 times increase in pills, a 5 times increase in those addicted, and number of deaths.
Right.
5 times increase in the number of deaths related to opiates.
And growing.
And growing. So when we look at the complicated issue, it's not that complicated. If you bring pills down by roughly 50%, you will bring deaths down with a lag period of a few years, down 50%, roughly. And the CDC issued guidelines to doctors on March 15th of this year.
Right.
If every doctor in the country, and by the way, they'll have a 10-hour continuing education course out in the next 60 days, the CDC will. And if every doctor takes that 10-hour course and adopts the CDC guidelines as a standard of care, and that should be required state by state by state, and that's one thing we're going to be advocating for in Texas, that Texas require their doctors to do that, then roughly the amount of pills being prescribed will drop by a large number. I can't say it's exactly 50%. Call it 40 to 60%.
But how many lives will be saved?
It's not going to go. Yeah, it's not going to go back to where it was.
Right.
We have to ensure that people who have pain, that the pain pills can really help them, should get those pills.
Of
We
course.
don't want to take that away from people who really need it.
Of course.
But for people who don't need it, I'm not a doctor. Let's follow what the CDC says.
Well, here's the
CDC.
And here's some of the problems is you can't see pain. I'm a firm believer that most docs really want to do well, and they're trained.
Absolutely.
In it. But
Absolutely. That's why they became doctors.
right.
Good people.
Yes. So, but you're right. If we can beat that number down, we would save many lives. And that's for sure. And we also, there's other things we need to do is look at hospitals after surgery when people are getting on these extreme, on IVs until the day they leave, and they're leaving with a prescription. And the prescription, 1 is not enough, 4 might not even be enough. So we're turning people into addicts in our country that we have to pay attention to.
Right.
And now we're sitting here, and day after tomorrow, November 16th, is when Stephanie
It's gonna
propels
repel. Oh, my
20
goodness.
stories down that hotel in Austin.
I need somebody to FaceTime me that. I really want to see that.
Yeah, she had a GoPro camera with her last
I know
time, and
she
it didn't work.
Yeah, but we saw pictures of it, though.
You did? Oh.
Yeah, so it's pretty good. You know, Gary, I mean, we sure appreciate you and everything that you're doing to make a difference in this world. It's a shame that you had to go through the tragedy that you had to go to for this to happen, but your son did not die in vain, and I know that we appreciate everything that you're doing, and if there's anything that we can do to help, please don't hesitate to ever let us know.
But that would be just short of rappelling down the building.
I'm
is
not
that right?
doing that. No, I'm not going to do that.
We'll let Stephanie do
Cary,
that.
Cary, just, I would love to be connected after this call because we are looking into creating a national chain. Well, no, that's probably the wrong way to say it. Creating support groups for parents throughout the United States that are based on evidence.
Right.
And we would love to look into what you're doing because we're researching several right now to create a model that we can then expand across the country.
Very good. Well,
So many treatment parent support groups are not based on evidence, and parents are getting the wrong information.
Right. I'd love to have a conversation with you. I believe you have my cell phone number, and
Sure.
why don't
We'll follow
we?
up. We'll
yeah,
follow
why,
up and get it.
yeah. Why don't we chat and see if maybe we can get lunch or have a phone conversation or something.
That sounds great.
And by the way, they can go on your website, right? Shatterproof.org.
Absolutely. And we're launching a new website in 2 days on Wednesday. Same day as the repelling event.
Very good. Gary, we thank you so much for being with us here on Families in Action, and I know our listeners sitting there saying, this is great, another way to get out there and fight the fight.
Absolutely. Well, thank you both so much, and I'll look forward to continuing conversations.
Thank you.
Again, thanks for all you do, my friend, and Stephanie, good luck with that.
That's right.
Okay.
And now we got like 1 minute before we have to take a break, but Cary, why don't we go ahead and introduce our guest who's been sitting here listening to everything we've been saying intently. Josh Greengard, the Public Information Officer from the local Highway Patrol Office. How are you doing? You've been very busy the last few days.
Yes, we have been a lot of busyness going on in LA County and LA City.
What's going on? Tell us, because after this show, we're going to have a special show from 1 to 2 with a very special therapist. In fact, I believe one of the best therapists around, Delise Diaz, and we're going to talk about what's going on after the voting and the elections and the craziness that's going on.
People are just voicing their opinions right now. That's what it is down to.
Voicing their opinions is okay.
Voicing their opinions is perfectly fine, yes. They can stay on the sidewalks, stay off the freeways, stay safe and do about it.
Quit abusing people.
Maybe.
Maybe. You don't sound real optimistic about that, do you?
Well, you know.
Yeah, I do.
You've been doing some long days doing this, just so people know when they say you're serving the community, you're serving the community.
Well, I could tell you that in Southern Division, CHP, they have us on standby. All of us on standby. So 12-hour shifts. They moved us all to 12-hour shifts and took away our days off for a little bit. But it's for a good reason.
For what exactly for?
To keep people safe, to keep people not on the freeways, to let them voice their opinions in a safe environment.
Right. Very cool. So when we come back from break, what are we going to talk about, Michael?
Well, we're going to be talking about holiday driving. And we're also going to, Josh and I talked about this before we went on the air, but we're going to talk about that interlock ignition device a little bit with John.
I had no doubt.
He remembers.
Always.
He remembers
I had no doubt.
every
You
time.
like that?
Oh, it's always, yeah.
Very, very.
Yeah, he's
funny.
ready. He's ready for
Awesome.
that.
You ready for us to take a break? This is Families in Action on your hometown station, AM 1220 KHTS.